We are talking The Empty Man. This one is directed and co-written by David Pryor and stars James Badge Dale, who plays a character called James. Now, James within this movie is a security consultant who happens to be an ex-cop. Now, he has had this kind of relationship with this particular woman, and her kind of teenage daughter goes missing under kind of somewhat mysterious circumstances. So him being an ex-cop and wanting to help out his kind of friend, looks into it and discovers there is this urban legend about this figure called the Empty Man. And the rumour is if you blow into a bottle at night over a bridge and think about the Empty Man, this entity will appear to you within 3 nights. Now, that sounds like pretty much every type of 90s kind of style horror movie setup you've seen. But the movie is actually something a little more than that. It's actually a psychological, quite literally, cosmic horror. And that is, the bit I've told you is more of part of the story, but it actually is a lot deeper than this. Or at least it tries to be. So, that's what I'm going to say on the plot. It's actually based on a comic book by Boom Studios. I've not read the comic, so I can't judge how good the adaptation is. But first of all, what works? Okay, number one, the intro of this movie. It has a prologue, which is actually a very long prologue. It's actually 22 minutes. It's almost like a short film itself at the beginning of this movie. Now, this prologue has really different characters and is a story within itself, but it does have some crossover with the main story as the film progresses. But it focuses, this kind of prologue, it focuses on this group of 4 hikers that stay up in the kind of the Himalayas or somewhere like that, and they inadvertently discover a cave, like a cave where one of the members sort of falls through it. And there seems to be a weird H.R. Geiger-style skeleton in there that seems to be putting one of their guys in a trance, and things happen. It is fantastic. This kind of opening sequence, I was like, wow, this is going to be a good movie. This is going to be a good movie. This setup is fantastic. It's fantastically photographed. The set design is awesome. You know, in the short time we see this character, I think they're great. It's really, really good. And then we're going to go into our main story. Well, I have to be honest with you, I was kind of a little bit disappointed because I kind of wanted to follow that one. But, you know, here we are. And our kind of main story, I have to say, it's still an interesting story. And as the movie progresses, we kind of go down this kind of like this rabbit hole, and we kind of learn that there are other things involved here. There's kind of like a Scientology sort of style cult that may have the answers to maybe the mystery that surrounds this kind of movie. The movie is expertly photographed. It is some of the best cinematography I've seen, and the production value here, it looks like it's a relatively high budget. This was made for a cinema release, and it shows. Because the production, despite this movie not really having any kind of big names in it, nonetheless, the quality of the production here is very, very high. I was very impressed with the kind of the scale, the kind of the production design, the kind of the quality of the kind of the technical work here. All top grade stuff. The movie's very ambitious with its plot. Like I've said, on paper, when you kind of read this synopsis like I've just told you, and probably a lot of people would assume this is kind of like as I say, a 90s or 2000s sort of style slasher movie that you kind of would have got in droves, but it's actually something not like you're going to expect, and is more Lovecraftian in nature, is maybe the best way I'll describe it. And it's an intriguing plot that has some twists in it that I think are pretty out there, to be fair. But nonetheless, one of the things that works for this movie as well is the character of James is very much doesn't know what's going on. So you almost feel like you're in his shoes because you don't know what the hell's going on either. And you are discovering it along with the character of James about, and even right at the end, he still is kind of like, I don't really get what's going on. And, you know, you go on the journey with him, which I think is great. So you're at the same speed as our kind of central protagonist. And he's kind of like very much kind of working class kind of guy, and quite relatable. I think the acting is all pretty good here. The effects work, I think, is fantastic. So yeah, all good stuff so far. What maybe doesn't work? The movie is a little long. The movie is about 2 hours, 15 minutes, 2 hours, 20 minutes, something like that. And I have to be honest with you, I found it somewhat meandering in places. Particularly late in the second act, it really starts to feel like it's treading water, particularly with the kind of the Scientology cult stuff, which feels like it goes on for a little bit too long, and it's drawn out for, I think, longer than it needs to be. You know, I do think it kind of it could have been benefited from maybe a little bit of re-editing potentially. The movie's a good quality all the way through. It's well made all the way through, but I just think the story kind of lags in the middle. I'll have to be honest with you. This as much as I enjoyed the story the main kind of story, I was never quite as excited I was as in the first opening 22-minute sort of mini film. To be honest with you, that was super strong. And whilst the main film is good, it's never really as kind of quite as thrilling as that film. And I would have liked to have maybe seen that explored more, or maybe more put onto that. And it's a little jarring, I have to say, when you spent, you know, almost a third of a running time of a regular film, and then you kind of snap into new characters and stuff. It's a little jarring. And this movie likes to, I think the movie likes to think it's pretty intelligent. It likes to think it's somewhat of a cerebral horror film. And in many ways it is. But at the same time, there are things that are a little bit like, huh? You know. So let me give you an example of something that is relatively early on. So it's in the first intro. So I don't want to spoil, you know, things here really. So in the intro, as I've said, we get one of our kind of hikers fall into this kind of cave, and it's about a 40 to 50 foot drop, and on pure stone, you know, pure kind of mountainside, and he doesn't have any physical injuries from this. And that I was like, really, you know. And you could argue, oh, but there's paranormal stuff going on here, so that's why he wasn't, you know, injured. Fair enough, you might say. But surely the characters that would be there then go, why hasn't he got any injuries? And they find this kind of like alien-looking skeleton in this cave, and we get this another character in there, doesn't take photos of it or anything like that. I mean, he has at this point the other guy appears to be okay, but yet he doesn't kind of like take any evidence of it, doesn't tell the other people about it. There's no real reason for it. It's just to kind of get the story to where it wants to be. So despite, I think, some intelligent storytelling, certainly within the kind of the main story, if you like, and some fairly kind of clever twists, and I think, again, we'll come on to that in a second without spoiling anything, it still has managed to have some dumb and some cliche moments in there as well. The final twist, obviously, without kind of revealing what it is, I don't know if it entirely makes sense. Again, without spoiling anything here, when you think about the world around and characters' interactions and histories and things like this, thinking, I'm not quite sure this entirely makes sense. Again, I don't want to spoil anything to it, so I don't want to go much further than that, but it doesn't quite make sense to me, if I'm being completely honest. But overall, this is a strong film. It's very, very well made. And although I don't think our central story is quite as interesting as the prologue, it still is an interesting story. I think it drags, and it kind of reminded me of almost like Bless the Child, which starred Kim Basinger in a way. It's not the same story, but it just kind of reminded me of that kind of culty kind of style movie. But the intro is definitely worth watching. It's worth watching just for the intro. Honestly, it's so strong. So some really strong visual choices in the intro. I would have loved to have a movie, I say, which expanded upon that. But there you go. Overall, though, it's a strong film, and it is one I would recommend if you like spooky kind of like horror movies with but you need one that you have to kind of pay attention to and watch. I will give it a 6 out of 10. I'm gonna do that. Let's say a 7 out of 10. I do think maybe it is a strong film. So we're gonna go with a 7 out of 10. Actually, I think it just pips it a little higher than that. 7 out of 10. What did you think of it? Leave me a comment, and I'll look forward to seeing you next time. Bye for now.